अरे तो टेंशन क्या कर रहा है फिर से रीटेक कर लेंगे.
So instead of making products, you're making communicating objects.
Mukul Goyal, the finest object designer.
I personally wouldn't like to think I'm serious.
Few cookies. What's the most dangerous thing in Mukul's studio?
Jugaad, in a way, for me is...
I'm sure Darwin theories apply.
You know, the nascent stage of internet addresses, मेरा ID ये है.
And you were saying मेरा curtain rod का ID ये है.
Your early childhood days, we used to have these Pedro jokes.
Experimental material you ever worked with.
Cut the base and cut the top and removed everything and they just have the two rings.
18-year-old Mukul Goyal. What's Mukul's dream collaboration?
Me. You're selling a good design product, give them a good design product. Period.
Welcome to HearDesigners, Season 1, Episode 2, a podcast for designers by designers. From art hardware to redefining functional designs, Mukul Goyal's journey is nothing short of inspiring. A designer who seamlessly blends creativity with utility. Mukul has reimagined everyday objects into timeless pieces of art. Today we dive deep into his world, exploring his journey, philosophies, and of course, his lighter side. So welcome to our show, Mukul Goyal. We all know Mukul Goyal and Mukul Goyal Designs. But what we don't know is how this journey began as an 18-year-old Mukul Goyal and the journey forward is.
Wow, that's a long time ago. But yeah, so basically, 18 years old, I joined IIT Kanpur Engineering School, basically. At the age of 16 and a half. So I was already at IIT when 18 happened, you know.
Oh.
Yeah. So, well, the thing is that you led very insulated lives then. Your worldviews were very limited to what you saw around you. Media and all of that was very limited. So your exposure of your family and your environments decided who you were at that point of time. But when I reached IIT and the kind of campus it had and the kind of environment it had, my senses exploded in a way. You know, it was a beautiful campus, beautifully designed, and there were so many opportunities to explore. And I started exploring a little bit of art there during some of the courses that we had on art, as well as a great library and certain workshop facilities that were available to us. So it kind of started as a nascent exploration of something that excited you and eventually snowballed into something much bigger, much later.
So this engineering was a decision made by parents ideally?
You had that kind of inkling. It was not a decision, but yes, it was either engineering or medicine, like it was in most families. Medicine, it was not to be because I couldn't handle genetics in my studies. It's too complicated. And so I kind of by default moved towards engineering. Though I did try for architecture at the age of when I was finishing school. And unfortunately, the only architecture college I applied was in Lucknow, which is where I was during that time. And I was underage for it. So though I qualified for the college, I was termed underage, so I didn't get admission.
So how life would have been different if you would have went architecture?
You never know. I might have been an architect. Or I might have found my way all around it. So, you know, these are questions which you always think that, okay, had I gone to NID when I had finished my 12th, or had I gone to an architecture school, what would I have been like? Honestly, I don't think I want to exchange my experiences in any which way. I think today I'm very fortunate to have been able to explore what I have done so far. And if it had not been for those experiences that I've already been through, I may not get that opportunity. So I don't want to change anything.
So how did you break it to the family that I want to go into design, breaking the traditional chains of engineering and all? And
Well, that was a tough one. That was a very tough situation for me. Well, I had started getting very fond of art, and my first job was in Faridabad, with Aisha Gudat as a management trainee, and so I would spend all my free time going to the National Gallery, museums, which Delhi has a lot of, and I also started going to Delhi College of Art, Tilak Marg, and meeting some of the students there. So one didn't know of design, really, honestly, and I only knew of art because that was more obviously available to everyone. And so I thought I'll be an artist, not a designer. But so what I after having worked at Aisha for a year, and this thing kept growing inside me that my life is going to slip away if I don't make a move. So I told my parents I want to be an artist, and they completely freaked out, especially my father. My mother didn't know what's happening, but my father freaked out. He said, "Oh, your class fellows from IIT Kanpur, they are in IAS or they're in IIMs or they've gone abroad. I didn't do any of these things," which he was opposed to earlier. But he said, "Okay, you really want a compromise? You can do any of these." And I said, "I'm not interested in any of these, and I want to be an artist." I don't know. I had this strange stroke of inspiration where I, bargained with him, and I said, "Listen, why don't you give me 2 years? Let me explore for 2 years. And if you find me meandering and not really choosing something that I would have liked to do, then you choose for me. I'll take up that path. But give me 2 years." And he agreed to that. But he initially didn't speak to me for a good 2 months. It was tough for him.
Period.
It was a tough thing for him also, And of course, the relatives didn't make it easier, Aur beta haath se nikal gaya.
And back then, it's not even today, 2024.
Yeah.
So you just spoke about inspiration. What really inspires you of everything that you design, small, big, large?
It's very difficult to put your fingers on any one thing, The thing is, I like to lead a full life, and I, whether it's music, whether it's, work of the predecessors, real work, people who have done some amazing work and have really inspired you, or nature, which is great, people around you. I think I honestly believe in one thing, that life is a magic show, and every morning you get up and you should know how to clap. So if you can enjoy the magic of life, because if you ask the question how life happens, there's no answer, right? So it's a magic. And so there's magic all around you. And if, like a child, if your eyes are, star-studded with the kind of things happening around you, then you cannot not be inspired by it.
No,
so it's very difficult to say one particular thing, It's everything.
I mean, so well put. I cannot even say any further. But in your early days, I was reading one of the articles where you spoke about, trash to treasure. And you did a fish hook redesign. And you have done a lot of such things where you have taken inspiration from pieces of life where nobody would ideally even look at. So how did this mindset or this thing happen that it really inspired you to create objects?
So, I don't know. So there's so many parallel stories happening at all points of time. One thing is, of course, my father was an engineer, and he was the epitome of what we call Indian Jugaad. He would Jugaad everything in the house, right from the whole house was a Jugaad, in a way, Though he was in the Air Force and he was supposed to be a very precise engineer with high tech and all of that. But in his real life, he was a Jugaad person, And so everything was being repaired at home. So he had this box of electrical spare parts, old plugs and sockets, and everything that broke in the house used to be kept in this little dabba. And everything that finally broke was being repaired from something inside this. So this one fine day I was doing something and I came across these old sockets and pieces, and so I started opening it, and things started unraveling within. Now you see the old, sockets. They were made out of brass, which was stamped and then turned into sockets for putting the plugs in. But if you open them, they had beautiful forms unto themselves. Now the fact is, it was beauty revealing itself from a source which is completely unheard of. So the fact is that I just got inspired by them and I said, well, this deserves a greater celebration than being inside a socket. And then you make a small piece of jewelry out of it.
So you just spoke of one very interesting term, Jugaad, that is patent of India globally. So two things. What Indian Jugaad has really inspired you? And what is one Jugaad that you have created?
So, well, so Jugaad in a way for me is thinking on your feet. It's making do with the kind of constraints you have, which, everybody has, and everybody makes do with the kind of constraints, and it's all over the world. It's not just patent to India, but we celebrate it.
We celebrate it.
We celebrate the idea of constraints, and I think that's a beautiful thing, And of course, within those constraints, how do you create something is, I think even my entire journey as a designer started from being a jugaad, right? So, well, you didn't have money to make your products. So where do you start? You started by making rough mock-ups. A rough mock-up is a jugaad, right? To understand how this product might work eventually. So when you put that thing together and say, yes, I think there's something happening here and I can put some more money into making it. But the first step was a jugaad, right?
Your designs are full of playfulness, everything that we see around. Yet some might initially find you very reserved and serious in the personality that you carry and you showcase. How do you think your approachable nature surprises people once they get to know?
Well, I think it's just a matter of perceptions at the end of the day. I personally wouldn't like to think I'm serious, or I wouldn't like to think I am unapproachable. And I tend to have fun in everything I do. And it's an art that you perfect over the years. It's not something that, I believe that if I don't have fun in doing what I'm doing, I'll not be able to give it my complete self. I kind of completely get engrossed in the process. And that process means a lot of play. That's my personality.
Truly. So, Dokra Craft holds a special place in your work.
Yes.
How did this traditional art form found a place in contemporary art where you were doing all this everyday inspired art design?
So, so I first, I've been like encountering Dokra Craft for a very, very long time, but I had this opportunity to travel to Orissa, to, near Baripada at Kudiakunta, to undertake a project which was a collaboration between Dastakar and the company I worked with. And we were to travel there to try and make some products. So what really inspired me, is the process or the technique, which is so beautiful, yet so flexible, and yet so intricate in its own way, that I have never stopped exploring it. We have explored so many things along the way, and tried to innovate in the process, innovate in the outcomes, innovate in the way it's presented to the world. So, tried to do all kinds of fusion techniques with it. And I think, it's one of those beautiful processes which has no end to it, and I think there's so many things that inspire me about it. But, it's the lyricism. So when they convert that wax thread into a line, it becomes a line art, right? And that line dances, it plays, and your eyes follow that line. Now, how do you create magic there? That's a challenge. And there are so many challenges like that all the time.
Then you still continue.
So, this is a very, very old art form which is practiced in the tribal areas, and it starts all the way from West Bengal, going all the way to Raigad and Chhattisgarh, all the way down. It's a whole belt of people practicing it. But the same art form was being practiced in Africa, was being practiced in South America, parallelly thousands of years ago.
Surprising.
Yeah, it is. Almost similar outcome, but slightly different aesthetic. That's it. Your faces will be different.
That's surprising. What other art forms do you think you have truly incorporated in your design? Traditional art forms?
There are so many. So one is like this is a caste-based art form. Then there is, sheet metal working, the Thatheras. I had the opportunity of working with sheet metal and Thatheras and living and working with them very early in my journey as a designer in Rewari. I was working with an NGO and I spent many, many months just working with the Thatheras in Rewari. And I think, I think what is important is to understand the relationship of material, tools, craftsmen, their lives, their cultures, their festivals. It all comes together as a beautiful whole. So for me, tools and the craftsmen and the people and their humility at the same time being such intense artists, it's truly inspiring. And I think it's a question of how much time you can devote into knowing them and working with them. So all these art forms which I have grown to incorporate are the art forms I've spent a lot of time working with them at their tias, in their villages. And that's how it has inspired me. It's not that I have seen it in a show and I said, oh, wow, this is inspiring. No.
Let's do it.
No, it doesn't come that way. I think what has come to me is working with them, understanding how every tool has its place, how every beating has its place, going into the depth. It's like, I don't know how to read music, but for people who can read music, music has a different meaning.
I'm sure.
Same way, I think.
So too much of hands-on experience.
I think there's no other way for me. I can't say for everybody, but I can say for myself. It's understanding how the playing of a guitar creates music.
So with all these Indian art forms and Indian inspirations that you brought to the design, how easy or difficult it was to project a made in India label selling overseas, especially given all the kind of biases and everything that people have back then and even now? How do you think it was easy or tough, or how did you make it or break?
See, there's always a period where you try and understand or figure out how you reach that market. Okay, so I would say my first initially, and then you have to dive deep. You have to waste those few shows and experiences, and I have done the cold calling. I've gone with suitcases or bags and walked into stores, and I've been shooed out saying, we don't want Indian salesmen in here, kind of thing, very fancy stores. But you do that and you realize that that's not a platform for you, and you can't just go with your set of samples because there are 10,000 guys who've done that before you, and they've not really delivered. And so, see, people are not wrong in saying we don't want to deal with you because they've probably been hurt before. It's not some sort of a discrimination. It's just that people don't want to waste their time. So I realized fairs is the most democratic way of approaching anybody. And you it's like having a shop and you put it out there for 3 days and let people discover you. But being at the right show at the right time is important. So what one had to realize is that there are a few basic learnings along the way, which is nobody cares where you're from. You have to deliver a good product. You don't give an Indian sob story. Oh, we have such craftsmen and this is made by hand and it takes so many hours and there are poor people sitting there and, nobody cares for that. You selling a good design product, give them a good design product, period. Nobody cares if this is made by hand, then two pieces will not be the same. They have no patience for it.
We need to tell this to Indian reality shows. I
No,
think.
you have to go there and say, this is a perfect product. And I'll give you 50, 100, 200 pieces which are as perfect as this one. This is well designed. So you don't sell ethnicity. You don't sell poverty. You don't sell craftsmen. You sell design. And that's what it's about. And that's what I learned. Different people can do it differently. And so we stood out there year after year, only saying this is great quality. And I think, for me, the success of selling in international markets was only by quality. I always say design can be subjective. You might like some, I might like some. You may not like all I design, which is fair, because it's a subjective term in terms of aesthetics and functionality. But quality has no variable there. So we got repeat orders not because of the design, because of good quality. And good quality comes at a cost. That also we realized. It's an attitude where you become ruthless. Good quality makes you ruthless. You reject more than you ever make. You lose more money than you ever make. But it pays back sometime at some point of time.
Too much to learn there, but moving on, we definitely respect the consistent quality that you have delivered over a period of time. What's the most amusing or funny feedback you have ever received?
Well, the thing is, the feedbacks I receive, a lot of my work is to do with human forms. And I realized that, people are associating themselves with the human forms and they're seeing themselves in those stories. So the number of product ideas I get from everybody is incredible. So why don't you make a man doing this? And why don't you do a man doing that? And that never stops, So I am getting amused by the fact that everybody's seeing themselves in those products. And so they can't help themselves giving me suggestions on what I should be designing and how I should be designing it. And I find that it's at one level, it's really beautiful to understand what people are seeing there. At the same time, I find it, amusing that I should be getting that feedback and people not seeing what I'm designing rather than telling me what I should actually be designing and not that.
So, for each his own. And we just spoke of figurative work or figurines. I mean, everybody knows Mukul Goyal and figurines. They just go hand in hand with each other. But just understanding this figurine, where does this inspiration come from? Is it just one person? Does it have a name? What does it eat? How is he so flexible almost in every pose?
It's me. It's you. See, the thing is, it evolved. It started as it was a crazy project. It was in very early days. We used to do curtain rods. We still do them, but our work has also grown outside it. And so we decided to, there's an inspiration point where we did some curtain rods, the whole idea of a curtain rod in the room and where somebody's sitting in the end fishing, sitting on the rod and fishing or dancing, doing a pole dance on top, or, somebody sitting with the binoculars and looking down on your bed, so all kinds of. So we did a whole series of human forms, like one hanging and, hanging up there. Did those. But it was too early. People didn't understand curtain rods per se, let alone sculptures on top of it, And I'm talking about 98, 99, when we did this project. It was way not there, people weren't buying it. And we were so disappointed that we'd done this beautiful series of human forms on curtain rods that it should have been sold out. But it just stayed on the curtain rod there and did nothing to it. So it was this exploration which I was seeing part of me, that I'm hanging in there, I'm sitting there and looking with binoculars, I'm sitting and fishing. So it even had a fishing pole with a thread and a little metal fish hanging at the end of it, and sitting there. We were like, fishermen are meant to wait, for the longest time, that patience. So, this was all there. So when it didn't sell and stayed up there for a year and a half, nothing happened to it. And then one fine day, I just got upset. I said, let's take that down, And from the from the curtain rod to the table. So we decided to just play around with the human form, and the first object we did was the bookends, with the shadow holding the weight, and somehow so each object by itself started doing well. So it was one object, then the second after 2 months, then the third. So I never designed as a range. It just kept getting added on and just kept involving me to the point now we have a whole city, we have a whole tribe, a whole village of people, and I have to constrain myself. I don't know more human forms, I have to hold my hands, hold my brain, everything, and say, it's getting crazy, But if you get an idea, what do you do? As a designer, you have to respect your ideas. So you have to bring them into life. And so I constrain myself a lot, but if I still get ideas, I still make them. So over the last 22 years, these projects have gotten added in spurts and bursts. It's not a one-time you design a range and it's done. And slowly and slowly, the way I've realized it is that the human forms are a part of me. When I imagine these objects, I'm saying, if I was a box, what would I be? Or if I was a spoon, what would I be doing there? Or if I was a pen stand, what would I be doing there? So I am inside those objects in a way of imagining the concept. For me, the concept, where a lot of people won't see the concept behind these objects, for me, it's only the concept. The rest is a matter of execution. Like I was designing this pen stand, and we said we have to have a pen stand. So what is a pen stand? It's a mug. So we put a human form inside a mug, sitting on the edge of the mug with this, that. We tried all kinds of things. It was not happening. What did happen was that we had this human form from inside the mug standing on the edge and looking at you. But I said, iski body to gayab ho gayi. Now I have to show the body. So we cut the base and cut the top and removed everything, and they just have the 2 rings. Now how do you float the 2 rings? That's a matter of technique. You do it, you detail it out. Of course, we are so obsessed with detailing it beautifully that you can't see a screw, you can't see anything. It has to be beautiful. That is detailing. We do it. But the concept was how this whole thing came about eventually. Actually, it was id. Because of id is the id, ego, superego. There are 3 parts of the self. Okay, it's from psychology. So you have the shadow, right? The shadow is what's making the human form work in the bookend. So your inner self is so important for your external self. I was being overtly intellectual about it. Nobody got it. And this is a 2001. I'm saying id. सब लोग बोल रहे ID. उनको तब ID समझ में आ रहा था. And addresses were still just beginning. Internet addresses were still, the nascent stage of internet addresses. मेरा ID ये है, mail ID ये है. So everybody was talking about ID. और मैं id बोला जाओ. id किसी को समझ में ना है.
And you were saying मेरा curtain rod का ID ये है.
जो भी है. So I said ID भी ठीक है यार. Now here you change yourself, right? You said ID is fine. ID is identity. So we've had all kinds of series inspired by various human activities all around us. Right. But eventually, so some people call it Pedro. Okay, because some of the sculptures we made, initially I called them Pedros. The reason why I called them Pedros was in early childhood days, we used to have these Pedro jokes. Much like the Santa Banta jokes we have right now, So Pedro was the Spanish character, was the village bum, who used to do nothing, laze around, and, just put his fingers in everybody else's business, He was a simpleton, but, that kind of a guy. So for me, this guy was relaxing, hanging around, doing nothing, village bum, useless fellow was Pedro. So because from the Pedro jokes came the Pedro. So everybody has given them their own name. Mukul, your Pedro pieces are very nice. So last year I was thinking, I said, we have to give this whole thing a name, And eventually, because no name becomes intimate enough, and we love giving name to our objects. All our objects have names because they define their personality. So you see all our collection, everything has a name. Of course, some of them we run out of ideas to give good names to, but more or less we have got good names for all objects. So we said, this whole series is now Sapiens. So that's how it is evolving. I don't know.
I'm sure Darwin theory is applying in full force.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting thing that we read was that you also got inspired by a server who was, or waiter who was balancing his dishes and trays.
Yeah, that was another, So these are things which happen. You travel around and you see these people who are superhumans in a restaurant. Balancing so many things at one go. And so it's there. There could be very simple inspirations coming to you, and then So we did this product called Cakewalk, cake serving dish. So the idea was to make a cake server dish, cake platter in which you keep your cake. And so it has a stand, it has a base, it has a thing on top. That's the archetypical cake plate. Now, so when you have a dancing human form carrying that, so you said cakewalk. I realized cakewalk was a form of dance. I read more up about it, is that the people who used to work in plantations in the evening, when they came back to their little village, places in Southern America, they would have a stomp around the fire, which they used to call cakewalk. So, we started combining a little bit of research, history, into what your experiences are, into objects eventually. See, how many people will appreciate the object for a story? Nobody. If it doesn't hit you at the first go, it has to. Otherwise, you don't get second chances. And this, I believe, because if I am selling a product in a store in Bogota, Colombia, sitting 20,000 kilometers away from me, and it's lying in some shelf with 20 other products around it, how does somebody reach out and buy a product? It has to talk to you. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. I'm not there to sell it. Nobody's there selling the product. So the product has to catch your eye. Sometimes you'll make it, sometimes you make it.
Definitely.
So instead of making products, you're making communicating objects. It's communication design at the end of the day.
Mukul Goyal, the finest object designer. From Mukul Goyal to a sculptor. Huge, large sculptures, installations, especially ones like you recently did at Smritivan and more. How do you manage this variation in scale, in design?
So you know what? My foundations are 20 years in going, I'm still, foundation is carrying on. The foundation program doesn't end.
Freshman year.
So I'm always in freshman year. So I've been doing these tiny objects, small objects for over 20 years, and my world was inside them, and this is almost like you're making a clock and you're inside that clock, all the time. So I said, let's change the scale of things. One fine day I said, let's make big things. I just want to see what it's like to make a big thing, and you have your inspirations from people who have done amazing, huge works of art. And so we said, okay, let's make something big. Of course, I needed a sponsor, and so that the thing is, somebody has to believe in you to make a big thing, and you had to put money up front to make it, And as designers, you're always hand to mouth in some way or the other, you're not really, you've done it and you're sitting back and I've earned my money, and there's a process, because you spend a lot more in your own art, because that's where your money goes, honestly, all the time. So we decided, and we experimented with making a huge Mabell, one of our products which we had made in a small size, and said, so what is it going to be? And so we had India Design coming up, and we said, okay, let's showcase it in India Design. 3 months to go. I said, I don't even know where to begin, So we just translated that product as it is to understand scale. So it's like a classroom project. Idea, you're not reinventing an idea, you're just changing the scale. So if you have a small scale product and you're going to make it big, what does it take to make a large product? And what is how do they relate to that object? So for me, it was a huge learning experience. You're looking at little tiny details, and large scale products, you have to be very forgiving. And how do you become forgiving? You can't be forgiving if your DNA is not forgiving. You're looking at everything to perfection in a large product. It's not happening. The process is not allowing you that perfection yet. So, it's one project. So that fortunately, we put that product out. It got sold at the show. Otherwise, I would have never made another large piece. We had a patron right there, and the patron continues to be very, very indulgent with us. It's been almost 10 years since we did the large project. So you know what? Coming to the fact, how do I manage it? I think every part of what we do inspires the other. So we made jewelry as a reaction to the fact that people were weighing your product, saying, how many kgs is it? What is going to weigh? And I said, at least jewelry, they won't ask me that question. No? How much does it weigh and how much is the price? What's the correlation between weight and price? Because jewelry is an emotional product. So hopefully they don't ask me. So I just made it for that as a reaction to this whole process of buying from people, saying, if it weighs 2 kilos, what's the weight going to be, So when we make pieces from jewelry to large sculptures, eventually the energy going into each one of them is equally the same. It's just this different scale and different setup. To make a small piece to making a 5-meter long piece, the amount of detailing is just the same. People don't see it. That's all.
Too much. So, few quickies. So, few quick ones here. What's the most dangerous thing in Mukul studio?
Me.
Oh, definitely. What's Mukul's advice to someone touching his work?
Feel it.
What's Mukul's dream collaboration?
Oh man, there are so many. I've been fortunate to have some
Take
very
one,
good.
Take three.
No, I see, they're all gone. Unfortunately, they're all gone. They're greats. Whether it be Harry Bertoya or be Alexander Calder or George Rickey, these are people who have really these are people who have run their own workshops and created amazing. So they are all workshop people. They all ran small workshops and created pieces which are amazing, And I would have loved to collaborate with anyone. And they're all people of material. They're people of materials who has created fabulous works. I think, I've learned with them, posthumously, but I think, it would have been great to collaborate with them. One great person I've had the opportunity of collaborating is, of course, Rajiv Sethi. He's, for me, a great of our times, And yeah, so I don't know.
Anyone much younger to you, you would think?
I think everybody's a great collaborator. I think the joy is in engagement.
Indeed. And your biggest design challenge?
Not getting the idea.
On that note, how do you rewind yourself or bypass the creative block?
So it happens now and then. It's not that it doesn't happen. You always
sure.
do. But you put it aside. You procrastinate over it. If it's not coming to you easily, it's not going to happen.
Just let it be.
Let it be. It'll happen. Sometimes it never happens. That was not meant to be. Sometimes it comes back to you. But you have to give the idea a break. If you're pursuing something very hard, it's not going to happen. If it's not working, it's not working. So when the idea clicks. When inside of you, when the idea clicks. And sometimes when the idea clicks, you're still not able to bring it into life. For many reasons. It's not executable to the quality level you want, then it also gets thrown away. So many ideas have not seen the light of day because I could not execute them in the right quality. Sometimes it just didn't. You lose the idea in the process of making it. The essence of the idea got lost.
And of so many times when an idea didn't work or it didn't strike or you had a long creative block, Was there ever a feeling कि engineering ही कर लेते?
Never. No, the thing is, अभी भी engineering ही कर रहे हैं.
हाँ, practically.
See, eventually you're still doing, what I like to tell is, we are doing light engineering. You know, it's basic engineering, but it's there. Every detailing you do, every time you cast it well, or if you're having casting issues or something, you are putting your engineering hat on. You put so many hats on in a day's work, you know, right from being an engineer or a entrepreneur or from a financier or being, you know, you have to run an organization also. And I think they all come back and make you a better designer. I disagree to the fact that people say that if they were only a designer and not running an organization, they would have done much better as a designer. I don't think so. I would have been a better designer if had I not been constrained by business, had I not had the responsibility of feeding 100 families every month on month, if I have to pay their salaries. I can't tell them that this month I can't pay you because we didn't make money. If I have to sell my shirt, I have to sell my shirt for it. So you have to make sure that you earn the money yet not compromise your ideals. Now that's a tough one.
I'm sure. I'm sure. It's easier heard. Now we are just slightly shifting our focus towards the younger generation of today, and especially, you know, people who are just passing out, seeking jobs, entering the market. What one skill every aspiring designer must have to thrive in today's market?
To feel. You have to feel what you're doing. You have to touch the material. Touch is also one of the senses,
Indeed.
right? So to activate your senses, you know, you have to be engaged in what you're doing. A lot of people are just doing it for the sake of doing. It's a profession. And I don't think this is a profession. It's a life that you choose to live. And that's the difference you have to make.
But a lot of them are not doing it.
It's a profession. 9 to 5 and I'm gone. You can't stop living, or you don't stop breathing, or you don't stop thinking. And that's what design does to you. You become insane almost, you know.
How should young designers think about global versus local design sensibilities? Because it changes.
I don't think you can never stop being Indian, right? It's in your blood. Wherever and whatever I might do, and people might think I'm not doing it, I am Indian in everything I do. So local and global is a question of marketplaces. And I firmly believe that I'm offering the same thing to an Indian marketplace, to global. We don't change a thing. Not the name, not the price, not the quality, not the packaging, nothing. And our Indian customer has as much right in getting it. The only thing they don't get is the price. Whereas an international customer gets the price, but Indian customers don't understand the value of it. But that's okay, it's changing slowly.
It's changing.
But not the mentality.
I'm sure, as you know, younger generations.
Yeah, well, but that's fine. It's a fight I've had for 25 years and it will continue. I'm not giving up.
So on that note, there are a lot of young designers struggling to find their voice in this very competitive market that has grown even fierce over years.
But have they looked for their voice? So if they find their voice, they'll be able to say it. The fact is they don't invest in finding their own voice. They're trying to be Me Toos, which we as Indians do very well. Okay, if somebody is making a scarf, let's all make scarves because his scarves are selling well at that price. But that's not true. You know, so you have to find your voice. But have you invested enough in finding your voice? And I think that's something, if we do, it holds us for the entire lifetime.
So is it something that you would attribute to social media or Pinterest or stuff like this?
To some extent, they are so overwhelmed with what is happening out there that they're scared of finding their own voice. But if you don't believe in yourself, who do you expect to come and believe in you? See, the fact is that there's nothing, in a true way, there's nothing original. It's how you cross-circuit everything. It's what the short circuits in your brain are going to be like, where the spark and the fire is going to happen. You have to let that happen. You have to do things to make that happen. If you just sit and think about it, कि मेरे से नहीं होने वाला है, that is not going to happen. So in our studio, we tell people, no Google, no Pinterest, nothing. It's not because you can't do it. It's because they are too impressionable. They stop listening to their hearts. So first 6 months in my studio are the most difficult for anyone. You have to, I say, did your heart tell you this? Or did Pinterest tell you that?
Tell me this. On that note, when you spoke about your studio, what kind of candidate would really stand out as an ideal team member?
No, so we are a multidisciplinary studio. So we require all kinds of talents. We need people who can speak well also. We need people who can understand well. There are people who can conceptualize well. Some people who can detail it well. Of course, we don't have so many people, but each one has a set of talents. And I'm just, as a person, as a team member and a leader, I am trying to see what is it the missing link. So there is a place for everyone. The only person who doesn't work out in my studio is somebody who doesn't want to work hard, or who's not applying himself and needs to be told what to do every time. Once, twice, thrice. Fourth time, you can't keep telling you need to do this. You have to pick. So we are a team of relay runners, right? Everybody's passing the baton one to the other. So everybody's effort is equally important, and their role, they're different people with different strengths. And that's what makes the team stronger. They're not one kind of people.
It complements each other.
So if I get a different skill, I have never come across this skill. And this skill could be good for my studio.
Hard work, as you say, is getting rare and rare to find these days. Is that something what a lot of people are talking about?
No, it's not just hard work. I think hard work cannot be defined in that. I think passionate work, where you really give it 8 hours. I'm not asking you to work 12 hours, 14 hours, but give that 8 hours the best you have. I think what people are not engaged with what they're doing. You see, I think it's hard work is
passion.
It's passion. You have to bring your passion to the fore. I try and unleash as much as I, in a process of mentoring. So it's not only they're my team members, I'm also mentoring them all the time. I'm also learning from them.
And one quality that would immediately disqualify someone. Again, not hard work.
No, so when somebody is... So my problem is I give everybody a chance. But over the years, I've realized what kind of personalities will not work in my studio is somebody who needs to be told all the time what to do, or who doesn't give it the best, or is too prone to not even exploring himself. I have to see some spark to create a fire, right? If I don't see the spark in the work at all, then where am I going to create a fire? Or they have too many demands. It's like, ask not what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country. I think that's my thing, before you even join me, okay, what are you going to give me? What money? How much time? How many leaves? How much time do you work on Saturdays? Do I have to ever come on a Sunday? Is that your criteria for working, or is your criteria how much work will I get to do? Or they want to be the bosses on day one and not do the grind. So, no, in that studio, I was only doing drawings in the first 1 month, so I don't want to work. No, well, you have to start somewhere. You have to prove your worth.
Indeed. So one question that you just said, you have to put on various hats every day and, spend your life in various shoes. So how do you balance being a creative mind and managing business?
It's like breathing, no? You find some place to breathe. So within, you're doing everything, yet there's something which is processing. So you don't have to physically take out, okay, now creative time. If you take out creative time, you'll never get it. It will come. So so you evolve as a person. You find ways of doing it, and you find ways where of course, there are times when you have to say, okay, now I have to send this out today, and come what may, aaj jana hi jana, and I don't have a concept, I don't have anything, now let me figure this out. Then when you sit down to do it, something does come. Most often, not all the time, but most often something does work out. But more often than not, it's working with you all the time. It just needs to, it's ruminating inside you, and somewhere you need to just create the output for it.
And how do you manage creative burnouts while doing all this?
Not doing anything. So, you have to recharge yourself. You have to learn to recharge. You have to learn to take a holiday. When I step out of my studio, I don't think anything. I'm on a recharge already.
But you're always thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I also don't know, but it works. I rarely call back. If I'm traveling outside, I rarely call my studio up. Ki ye kya hua, wo kya hua. Deliverables, I have to check. Did the deliverable happen? But did the creative thing, I only look at when I come back.
The most experimental material you ever worked with?
Experimental. Material is never experimental. All materials are equally experimental. The question is how you deal with the material is what makes it experimental,
One of
right?
the toughest one for you.
No, so, we've always, we deal with metals a lot. Like half the time I'm saying I'm a metal worker because that's the essence of who we have become. So, there's always this process of combining metals, two metals in one, fusing metals together, casting them together. We've had our successes, we've had our failures, but I've yet to take out a successful two material combination in one product. Like you take a piece of wood and take a piece of metal and join them by screws, it doesn't make it a fusion, right? But when you cast them together and they flow into one another, or they kind of merge each other's personalities, that's something, it's technical, but how technically you can achieve it, but how do you combine it into an efficient product where it makes, so that's a challenge, which is an ongoing challenge for me.
I can just imagine how beautiful it would come out.
Yeah.
So recently, the entire world has been talking about AI and its role in design. Do you have a take on it?
Oh, well, yes, see, like all things in technology, AI is also an enabling tool. But when you have an enabling tool, whether it was 3D printing and you say, no, we are only going to do handwork, 3D printing doesn't work in my thing. But we do use 3D printing now and then. It's enabling. You have to find out how it works for you and your team. How does it enhance your delivery, right? So for me, AI is also nice, but I don't think it can process what I am processing. And as long as that happens, I have a place for myself.
So in no means it comes across as a threat.
Nothing is a threat. I think, it becomes a threat when you're not willing to take on a challenge.
So well said, but why people are really afraid of it?
No. Well, if you're doing work which can be easily replaced, then you better be thinking about it. I don't think, at least the kind of work we do as a team, I think there's so much of cross energies coming together which can be replaced by AI. I don't think so. I don't think it's physically possible to AI to replicate that kind of spark.
Now getting a little more into personal life, and it's more like we all have met Shalini ma'am, right? So I could not skip this particular question that what role does a life partner plays in one journey?
You would be surprised how beautiful that role and that partnership can be.
So we all know she's
she supported me all the way through, right from the time when I decided to, right 15 days after my marriage to her, I quit my job. And all the reasons why her family would have let her get married to me, that I had a job, I had a car, I had a fat bank balance, everything went. Okay, 15 days, I said, I'm quitting, I'm starting my own thing. I had no idea what I'm going to do. I had no purpose in life that I'm going to make this and then survive. No, I just want to explore what it takes to make something by myself rather than somebody telling me that this is what you should be making. So for her to support even that move and, say, okay, go ahead, I'm behind you, to me burning up all her savings also in the process, and all her, PF funds and ESI funds and everything got burnt in the process. And there was a time where I used to wait for her salary to come, and when her salary came, we'd go and give it to the work team, So, but she's my greatest enabler. She's my greatest critic. She'll tell me what doesn't work. She'll tell me, ye to bikega hi nahi. Of course, we fight over that. More often than not, I'm right, But, I'm also wrong. It's not that. But, it's that great support of playing with each other in that sense. She's always there. She's got my back. And I think that feeling is there.
So we also spoke about how you, in very initial questions, how your father was taken aback when you told him about design and all. But then you eventually made it amazing. But a lot of parents are still very doubtful and very apprehensive about their kids taking up design even today, even 35 years after you started, or probably similar. So what would be your advice to young kids where they face the challenges, or parents where they have this apprehensive or approach towards an unconventional profession?
See, if you believe in it, you have to be brave. You have to fight the world, and parents are the first, easiest targets. There's so much bigger things to fight. If you're not ready for that fight, forget it. See, if you have to believe in a profession, whether it be music or film, or there are people who've gone and struggled in it. Do you think a parent is very easily saying, "Ja, actor ban ja"? They know how much they have to struggle in it. So it's as bad. But if you are not able to see the process of fighting for it, starts with the parents. They're the easiest. They're yours. They're not against you. They just feel that you should do well. That's about what their fear is. You have much bigger fights ahead. If you're not going to be brave now, then where are you going to be brave? You have to stand up to them and say, no, I am going to do this.
Very true. Very true. A non-design passion or a hobby that keeps you running?
I see design in everything. What can I do? So what is non-design? So by design, what is non-design? Nothing is non-design,
so
right?
Everything is design. I do agree. But
okay. So there's something that I don't know, but I would love to. Okay, I love making chai. So I don't drink chai, or I love making coffee. It's for me a very therapeutic thing that I do. And I love making chai for Shalini. And I'm the official designated chai wala in the house, or coffee wala in the house. I don't make much else. I can make a good egg, but I'm not good with cooking. I'd love to know how to cook, because I believe it's the finest human art form ever. There's no bigger art than cooking. But I can make a good chai. And if you can make a good chai, I always know there's an alternate profession waiting for me. I can have a galla somewhere, Or I can mix a good drink. That is also something I like doing. So that's non-design, if you'd like to call it. But it's also by design.
We would like to know one book that deeply influenced you.
Oh, there are those few gems of books, which have influenced me. Whether it's Old Man and the Sea, it's again 80 pages, Ernest Hemingway, there was Candide by Voltaire. These are books which have very strong. Then Siddharth by Hermann Hesse. It was the story of Buddha. And these are beautiful short stories of people who have found their way in some way. Like in Old Man and the Sea, the whole struggle of the person to tame the fish, and that fight. And I think these are books which have undoubtedly influenced. But you can say, R.K. Narayan has influenced me with his beautiful, simplicity of words and communication. With the simplest of words, he can make a painting of a language, or his brother R.K. Lakshman. I think R.K. Lakshman has influenced me strongly, and as children, or I think
To
my
everybody,
sense
I
of
guess.
humor would have come from Mario, his Miss Nimbupani and the whole, his ability to transform everything into a sense of humor.
So does your figurine come from that common man?
There is a common man in all of us. I could say, it would be a really very tall claim, but why not?
So we'll move to the rapid fire round. A lighter or an art glass, which would you redesign for fun?
Hourglass,
Nice. Weirdest object you ever thought of turning into art?
the brain.
A design you regret making or not making?
I regret making the human form.
We all know this, but metal or wood?
Metal.
Material you are dying to experiment with?
Glass.
Nice. One object you hoard at home but can't justify?
They're full of them, but I have this thing of, objects which are used by other people, and I have so many collections of those objects, but can't justify them to anyone.
Oh, I thought it could have been nachos.
No.
Guilty pleasure design idea?
Guilty pleasure design idea. All of them are guilty pleasures.
If life was a design collection, what would it be called?
Too much.
Useless design trend you have seen? Useless design trend you have seen?
Trends.
If not a designer, what would you be doing?
I would be a metal worker.
Thar or Tesla?
Huh?
Thar or Tesla?
Thar any day.
So with this, we come to end of our rapid fire
Thank
and
you. Pleasure.
the discussion overall. We bring this to life. In the end, I just have one question where I wish you to answer with all the thoughts in it, that what legacy do you hope to leave for next generation of designer?
So that's a very, it's not a question that I haven't thought of. It's what is the kind of legacy, and I would think the legacy would be in the process that one does, to be able to follow your passion, to be able to discover your passion, to believe in your instincts, and then to be able to fight and create something that you would call your own. See, the tangibles are not legacies. They're there, they come, they go, they inspire, they change, the times change. But I think what people need to do is to believe in themselves. And I have tried to believe in myself and followed my instincts and created something out of nothing. With all the obstacles, I think that could be a legacy by itself. And that could inspire young people to do more, to find their own journeys.
So, I'm speechless.
Well, I am speechless too. I talk too much, I think.
No, that's such a noble idea. At the end, and we also spoke about, getting people and help them exploring. And I definitely see you one day doing all of that. Thank you so much for answering so patiently. And this overall conversation was so inspiring and was so deep. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you, Mukulji. Thank you for such an amazing conversation and inspiring one.